Hey guys, welcome back. Here it is, another Friday.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our channel. Thank you for tuning in and thank you for coming back again and again and again to get some information on how to make your relationship or your marriage better. So, who are we?
We are Jason and Tina Marie.
That's me. Tina Marie is me. That's Jason. All right. So, and what do we do? Right. So, we are life and relationship coaches,
Yes.
mentors, and motivational speakers on self love, self development, and transformation, creators of Legendary Relationship and our truly life changing 6-week relationship course on Elevate Your Marriage.
We are also the host of Love and Beyond the I Do podcast. We have Principal Works gear and accessories. And last but not least, we are the authors of 8 Simple Ways to Awaken the Love and Intimacy in Your Relationship.
Okay. And we will get right into today's topic right after these messages.
All right, messages. Yeah, maybe after these messages.
Right after these messages. All right, so welcome back. Remember, you can find us here on Fridays live, ready to talk love, relationships, self development, and of course, our specialty, the 411 on marriage. Even though we talk about marriage, we deal with relationships, and that's all relationships because we want to make sure that all of your relationships are intact, but especially your marriage.
Oh, yeah, we want the marriage to be tight, right?
Tight.
Tight.
We were bowling the other day, and my son, he was behind and he was feeling bad, and he did like this. I'm getting locked in. So we want you to be tight, locked in. I'm sure my fingers weren't like his because his was pretty good. But
yeah, because he bowled 5 strikes in a row. So that was crazy.
yes,
Yeah.
terrible, but came back up.
Yeah.
All right. And that's what it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Well, in this case, with marriage, it's how you start
And
and,
how you finish.
and how you finish.
You can also find all of our previous podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Audible, and also you can find it on YouTube as well. And you can find it anywhere else or any app that you may have that gets you, that where you can get your podcast delivered. Our Friday night lives here are on YouTube and Facebook, and you can search them at Legendary Relationship.
Right.
Also, don't forget you can get a free our free ebook on our relationship on our website, Legendary Relationship. I'm getting tongue tied here. Yeah. So you can get a free copy of our ebook on our website, legendaryrelationship.com. And also, you can book a discovery call with us to inquire about our 6-week course.
All right. So, where can they find all of our information? Everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Okay, so everything you can find at legendaryrelationship.com/info. That way you will find it everywhere.
Everywhere. All right. So we also have a Facebook group called Marriage Boss. So if you have not joined, please join. And if you are a part of it, let's start sharing and communicating how to make our relationships better so that we can get back into the groove of things. Sometimes it helps to be in a group to support each other. This is a very private owned group. It's only for married couples or committed couples. And I don't know, do we have committed couples? Because we want to make sure that people feel secure in sharing or receiving information. All right. So let's talk about tonight's topic.
Yes.
Right. So tonight's topic is about so your mate
will not change.
Will not change. And so what brought us to this conversation is that as we continue to talk with couples, communicate with couples, coach couples, we realize that a lot of the time we want to play the blame game.
Right.
And people say don't play the blame game, but most of the times they don't even know that they're playing the blame game. We get so caught up in looking at everyone else that we forget to dissect and look at our own behavior.
For sure.
And most of the time, it's something that we need to change that will help us see a different perspective instead of always wanting our mate to change. So, if you haven't found out about me and Jason yet, we try to um, look at marriage in a different perspective. We try
All the
to
time.
always get both sides, right? And even the middle.
Mhm.
And we always try to make it from my standpoint,
Right.
right? So,
When you say my standpoint, you mean the individual, not your partner, but yourself.
I always want to look at me.
Mhm.
I want to put myself in his shoes,
Yep.
but I also want to look at me. I want to ask myself when I'm doing something that's continually bringing me the same strife, the same stress, the same headaches. Sometimes I need to stop blaming other people. Sometimes we have a tendency of blaming our kids for doing the same things. But as we stated before, we have created the relationship that we're in,
Right.
right? And so when we get to a point where we say, all right, this isn't working, he needs to change, she needs to change because now I've changed or I don't like this.
Right.
The thing is that we haven't changed, but we want change. And we won't feel better until our mate changes. But the issue is not always the mate. The issue is sometimes ourselves.
And it's like, if you say that you're changed,
Mhm.
then if you change, how can you still view that same person as you did before you changed? So I'm saying that maybe you didn't change. Maybe you said you changed because once you change, the things around you change. But if you can still see your old mate in your new self, then that's not really your new self.
So what does that mean? So Jason and I always say, so how do we have this conversation to help people understand what we're saying? Most of the time,
Mhm.
we think that we have changed because we now see the situation in a different light.
Correct.
That person is now irritating us more. That
Mhm.
person is now doing more of what we didn't like, or the problem is has now escalated, or the problem is under you. You're focused on it so much
Right.
that that's all you see is the problem, the problem, the problem. And what we're saying is that the reason why you keep seeing that same problem in your mate is because you think that you've changed and you don't like your mate's things, what they do. But the real issue is you.
Ooh.
And people go, no, I'm not the issue.
No.
I've changed. I know that this is not going to work for me. But if you have changed, then you wouldn't see that problem under that microscope so well. You wouldn't see that problem that you once saw before, that before you changed, you wouldn't see it as well because now you think we have a tendency of thinking that we've changed. And so now the situation must change. In order
Right.
for the situation to change to make me happy, my mate needs to change also.
That's right.
We're always looking for the outer to change first before we start feeling better and thinking that, okay, this is what I want. But we don't ask ourselves, why do I still see it the same way? And why does it bother me so much?
You know what? That's right, because we don't look at it that way. The first thing we say, well, we self gratification, right? I've changed. So you haven't changed, and I still see the same things that you've always done, but I've changed.
Right,
Right.
right. You can still
But
see what I haven't done. You can
right.
still see that I haven't changed.
And you guys are you change, but you get still having the same conversation and still having the same
The
disagreement,
same issues.
but you've changed.
Right.
But the whole thing of changing is changing your outlook and
About the whole
your
situation.
surroundings and
Absolutely.
your same self. So if you've changed, like I said before, you won't see those same things. Those same things won't trigger you
It's sort of like
if you truly change.
it's sort of like painting your wall, right?
Right.
So you change your wall,
Mm-hmm.
and when you walk back into that room, do you see the same color? No, because the wall has changed, right?
Right.
You changed the way you look at that wall, you change what you see.
Right.
So I had to ask a few people,
Mm-hmm.
when we're changing, do you want you to change or do you want your situation to change? And most of the time, people say both.
Right.
But how do you want your situation to change if you don't think that you need to change and you're still reacting to your mate the same exact way? How can we say, how can I tell you that I've changed if what you do still triggers me, right?
Right.
Right. So,
Right. So you haven't changed. You
right.
just said you've changed, but actually you haven't changed.
we're not going in circles. I hope people are understanding. So I know most of the time when you and I are trying to change of our bodies, right?
Right.
So we know that some of the things you have to change for your body. You have to change your eating. You have to change your habits.
Right.
Right. But if I wanted to change my body and I wanted to change how you viewed me,
Mhm.
I'm going to have to change myself. I can't say, I
Right.
need you to change. I need you to change the way you see me. I need you to change your actions and your behaviors.
Correct.
Most of the time, we always want to place blame on the other person because we think once that other person changed, everything is going to be right.
Right.
But
But it's not going to be right because you actually haven't changed.
well, not only that, but if that person changes, they may not change to what you think they need to change to.
So you got to be careful, right?
Right,
So they
because
might, right? They may
we're
make a change, but they may not make the change that you want.
we want to put people in a box. We want to put our mate in a box. We want to put the situations and circumstances. If they stop doing this, then we wouldn't have this problem.
Right.
Right. But again, people don't want to take responsibility for their part in the relationship.
For sure.
We have learned how to interact with each other. We have learned how to communicate with each other. We have learned how to push each other's buttons. Right. And so when I want something in my relationship to change that may not benefit me, if I keep focusing on it, all I'm doing is bringing myself
That's
more
all.
of that headache.
That's all.
Right?
That's
All I'm
all.
doing is focusing on something that I don't want, wishing that the other person would change it. But if I change how I see what you do,
Mhm.
and I change my perspective on it, and I change my triggers, if it doesn't trigger me, then therefore that could not possibly be the same issue in my marriage.
For sure.
We're looking at other people waiting for them. Well, things can't get better because they keep doing the same thing they've always done. And so we can get into the conversation of why won't your mate change, right?
Right.
Why won't they change?
Well, actually, what does change look like for you?
What does change look like for your
Right.
mate?
Because obviously you haven't changed because you can still see the change that needs to be made in your mate. So if you still see that, then what does change look like for you in your mate?
And instead of focusing on that person needs to change,
Mhm.
we need to shift and say, this is what I want my marriage to look like. This is what I want my relationship to look like. This is the way I want to be able to communicate. So what do I need to do to make sure that I'm in alignment with that? Am I communicating? Am I communicating effectively? Because like I said before, we have to remember we have learned each other. We
Right.
have created this pattern in how we communicate, how we talk to one another, how we interact with one another. And if I'm still communicating the same way, and I'm still talking the same way, and if I'm still in your face the same way, then I haven't changed enough for you to react different. And I want you to react different so that I can react different. And that's not the way change occurs. Change occurs with me. So I have to be able to see what I'm doing.
Right.
How can I recreate the way that I communicate with you? How can I show you, or how can we learn, right? How can we relearn
Right.
each other so that when I'm speaking, you're no longer hearing me through the same lens of the old me,
Right.
but through the new me, through the new relationship that I want to create. And go ahead.
I think um a lot of issues are I want you to change. So I'm assuming that you're the same person because you didn't react the way that I wanted you to act because of this new me. So if you could not assume and let them just kind of make sure they understand what you're trying to explain to them, and that's part of the problem. So if they don't really understand, they can't react the way that you probably would like them to react because they don't understand it. You have to make sure that you're communicating clearly so that you both are saying the same thing and understand exactly what's going on. If you don't, then you're going to continue to get the same outcome. And what I mean by that is if I say, or once we had an issue with a plate here in this household, right?
We had an issue with a plate.
A plate, right? So every time she would mention plate, then I would go to a place where I didn't want to maybe hear it or I blocked it out and I didn't really listen to it. So I needed to have time to listen to her, listen to Tina in a different light. I had to actually hear her all the way out before I put up my blockers and say, nope, she's gonna say this, she's gonna make me feel this way. So I'm gonna protect myself and I'm gonna do this. So instead of doing that, I actually had to listen. So then once I said, oh, that's not what I had it all wrong. Oh, okay. Now we can have a different conversation. Okay. She's actually asking me a question, asking me why. She's trying to get an understanding, but I didn't hear that at first. I heard you telling me to move the plate again like you told me last time, and I didn't, and now I'm going to hear about the last time I didn't. So here we go back and forth, right? But that's not what she was saying. She was trying a different approach. So again, she changed, right? But I was still the same. I was locked into the same old conversation. But then I had to open up. And then once I started listening, then I started to change, and it wasn't the same conversation. She just needed clarity to understand me better.
Right. So, do we have a comment? Oh,
Yep.
all right. So, Antoinette, good evening. Blessed to both of you. Thank you, Antoinette. We
you.
appreciate you coming on.
Yes.
All right. So, I want you to make sure we understand this clearly.
Okay.
So, when I think that, right, when I think that I have changed,
Yep.
and so I'm trying to communicate to Jason and he's not hearing me, is because we have created this pattern in which we communicate. And I'm still, even though I think that I've changed, I'm still communicating to him in the same manner. And he's still communicating back to me in the same manner.
Right.
So and the point why I'm bringing that is because nothing's going to change if we're still doing the same thing, even though I want different and my mate wants different. There has to come a point in time where we have to say the old way, it's not just you or him or her. The old way of doing things has to change.
Right.
The whole situation. And the whole point is that we want the other person to make the first move. We want the other person to do things according to what that's going to make us feel good. And that's not the way relationships are.
Right.
Relationships are about, let me understand how you operate. Let me you understand how I operate. And then we can get back to whereas I'm not focusing on the negative, which is creating more negative. I'm focusing on the positive. We know that whenever I'm sure like nobody's living under a rock, right? So we know that whatever you put your attention on, wherever your focus is at, that's what you're going to get more of. So if you're constantly looking for change in your mate in order to make things better, you're never going to see it because they're never going to be the change that you want them to be. They have to change according to their understanding, according to their growth, according to their consciousness and concepts of how marriage is. And if you all can't get on the same page, you're never going to resolve your issues. And as long as I'm laser focused on Jason's issues and what he needs to change to make me feel better and make our relationship better, I'm taking my eye off of me and saying, because I'm aware of it and I see it, that is something that he needs to change.
Right.
When the true issue is, I may be doing work on me, but am I doing the right work? Am I doing relationship work? Am I doing communication work? Am I doing the work that is going to help me to be able to take my eye off all the things he does wrong and then focus on the positive? Jason and I always have this conversation how society is all about how much of the negative can I see? How much negative can I? We like these dramas and this and this. We are conditioned to look at the negative things first.
Right.
It's always been said, you do 500 things right and one thing wrong, and everybody focuses on that wrong thing. Well, it's the same thing in your relationship. What makes us think that anything is any different in our relationship, right?
That's right.
So if you've been conditioned to always see the negative, unless you change the way you see things, your mate is always going to be in the wrong.
Right.
Right.
Right. And what you don't want that. You want to just open up and have better communication. So we always, like we said with the title, my mate won't change or will not change. Well, your mate will not change because it's not for you
to decipher how they should change.
Right. Now they may change, right? But it's not up to you to decide, or get your mate to change. It's up to the mate to make that change.
And it's not up to you as to what that change should look like.
Right. Because we said before, you might not like the change once it comes.
Or you may want them to change a certain way, and when they change that way, it's not exactly what you need or what you want. Change is a gradual process, and if we don't understand where the issues lies, somebody just can't change to make you happy.
And
That's not the way it is. And if you're telling that person what you don't like about them, they're not going to be receptive to it. And if you're and it all boils down to, if the old way of communicating isn't working, it's because you have to find a new way for you and your mate to be able to communicate where both people are understanding and on the same page.
I was just getting ready to say that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about communication than anything. When you're looking for someone to change and they don't understand or they're not going to do this, it's all based on communication. You guys,
the lack thereof.
Right. You're not communicating very well. So if you're not communicating well, oh, you won't change. You have that same old thinking and whatever the comments may be, because it's a lack of communication, effective communication. You guys, one, are not understanding one another when you're talking. So, and that's why you always say, I need you to change. You're not going to change. You never change. You've always been this way. Well, it all depends on how you view the situation and view the communication. So if I feel like I'm being attacked, I may act the same way. But if you get me to understand what you're trying to say and trying to communicate, I may then show you the other side and show you that, oh, okay, now you're not attacking me. You're just asking me a question. You may need clarification. So now I may reply differently. So now we can communicate. Did I change? Possibly, maybe because I don't feel attacked. So now I may have changed. The way we communicate is what we really need to have changed, not necessarily the individual.
And what we have to understand is that when things in our relationships aren't going the way we want them to go, and we start to say, okay, I'm fed up, or I'm working on myself, and you're not, and it's not working in your relationship, sometimes we have to go beyond our own knowledge, and that's where people get stuck. Well, I tried to do this. I learned this new skill. I learned how to communicate. Now I'm going to try it on my mate. It goes beyond that. Sometimes we have to read several books. Sometimes we have to take several courses. Sometimes we have to get several coaching, several mediators. And so that's what Jason and I do. When we talk with couples, we help them. We're a coach, right? You want to play baseball, you want to get better at it. You can't compare yourself to another player. You can't do the same thing you've always done or tweak one little thing and think that you're going to be an excellent player. It's the same thing in our relationships. It's funny how we can have all the answers to every other areas in our lives, but when it comes to relationship, we don't apply the same rules. We can't see that the same thing applies. We need to go beyond our own knowledge. We need to go beyond our own understanding. And sometimes we're so close or so deep in the situation that we continue to want the mate to change, but we can't see that it's stuck because my mate is still communicating to me the way they always have, and I'm still communicating to them the way I always have. We're still interacting with each other the same way, and it's going to take something different. It's going to take us a different approach to get a different result. And if you're not doing that, you're just spinning your wheels in the dirt. And so people say, I want to be happy. That's what I want in this relationship. I want to be happy. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm not happy or where I'm not being heard or I'm not appreciated. Well, the point is that if that misinterpretation between the two of you all are not there, then you have to try something different. We have created the relationships that we're in, which means that we have to recreate them. And in order to do that, we have to completely be a different person. You can't be the same person. I can't think that, okay, now I see all the issues he has. I have read one book. I think I know everything. So now I'm going to apply this to my relationship. It's more than that. We have to let go and become something totally different than who we were in that first relationship if we want a better relationship. And I can't stress that enough, guys. I cannot be the same Tina. I can't make one little tweak and think in my mind, okay, now I'm a better person. So now I need you to change because I'm a better person. I know I've changed. I know I don't do things the same, but yet you're still pushing my buttons. Yet I'm still focused on your negative aspects. Yet we're still arguing over the same things. Then how have I changed?
You have?
We have to ask ourselves, how have I changed? And most of the times we think that the answer to, well, I know I've changed because now I don't interact.
Right.
Now I just walk away. That's not change.
That's not change. And
That's
sometimes we mistaken change for selfishness. We're like, I'm doing this. Nope. I'm not going to get involved in this conversation. I'm just going to do my own thing.
or we get so upset and so wrapped up into our own thing because we are, we turn away, right? We
Right.
we close ourselves
Right.
off.
So it hurts the relationship by you becoming so, you change. You change it like I used to say something. Now I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to leave. Or I'm just going to get up, get dressed, and go somewhere and be gone all day. And I'm not going to communicate back with my mate or say anything like that.
And that's gonna make my relationship better. That's gonna make my mate change.
But I change because I'm standing up for me, right? But I mean, where's the respect for your loved one, right?
Or it's not just it's everything.
Yeah.
It's the whole package.
Right.
The relationship consists of two people, and if one person has decided that they're no longer, want to partake in the things that make them upset, then how is the situation going to change? Help sometimes, like I said, we're just not aware of it. We're
Right.
not aware of the things that we need to do, and then we don't know how to effectively communicate them over to our mate because our mate is hearing the same thing. So we have to find different ways to different things, and that's what we mean by that. Most of the time people get defensive. Well, I have changed, and I don't know.
That's the first time right there they get defensive. One, you get defensive because most of the time you're not hearing the other person. It may not be a defensive type of thing that you need to take, a stance that you need to take, but that's the first thing you do. Like I said, I heard plate, and I had my guards up, right? Because I knew where we were going with this, but that wasn't the case. We had moved on from that. Well, Tina had moved on from that, and she just needed clarity on something that she really wanted to know where I was coming from, not necessarily telling me that I needed to move the plate, but just what's your thinking on this? How are you feeling? Why is this? Why do you do what you do?
So how have you felt when you felt that we were stuck in a situation and you felt that it was something that I needed to change? Have you, which I'm sure you have, may take you a little while back, where I have the way I dealt with something and you were like, well, I need for her to change in order for me to feel better about this situation. Is that too far deep? Is that we're going too far back?
Well, you are going pretty far back, but let me make sure I understand what you're saying. Like if
same situation. So you and I have an issue.
Yep.
And you don't like the way I handle things. So you think I need to change my way that I handle it in order for you to feel better. Right. How did you work that out?
You know what? When it came up again, because unresolved issues do come up again
and again.
Right. So they're not just going to go away.
Sometimes the same way, sometimes in a different way, some different form, but they do come right back up again. Absolutely.
Right. So when it came back up, after a while, you're thinking, you're playing over in your head, like, I can't keep saying the same thing, feeling the same way. Let me try a different angle, because we're not understanding what's going on here. So once I started trying things at different angles, it opened up other avenues.
So was it me that needed to change, or was it you needed to change your perspective?
I needed to change my perspective so I could hear differently. I could see differently.
Okay.
Because if have tunnel vision on this one particular issue, and I'm right, or my viewpoint is just stuck in one way, I can't really see your viewpoint. I can't understand where you're coming from. So I had to maybe, go around the block and say, let me say it this way. Let me listen this way. And then it's like, oh, that's a different point. I didn't hear that last time. Right. So now I can say this, and this moves the conversation along. And then this is a lot of going back and forth and understanding, not giving up or losing, one side to the other,
right?
But understanding, like, this isn't working. This is tug of war, right? I'm right, she right. And we got the issue in the middle.
That's
right?
A very good point you put. Like you said, people have tunnel vision, and they really believe that their point is right. That's the issue. We think as an individual, we're so set that our way is right, that my mate is doing the wrong thing, the wrong way, saying the wrong stuff, that we're so set that we think that we're right, that we can't see that maybe I need to look at this in a different light.
Right.
But it's not about lying down or succumbing to someone or not having a voice. It's about understanding. It's about where are we in this situation in our relationship, why I'm not changing, you're not changing, and the situation isn't changing. Right.
Right. And that's where the problem come in at it. So it wasn't, I wasn't going to change or you weren't going to change. We had a situation. We had two different views. We playing tug of war with this
Right.
one issue because I believe what I believe, right?
Right.
And again, that's another thing that we need people to change, right? You won't change your belief. You won't change this. You won't change
How
that.
you view something.
Right. So if you have that, now you're stuck and you can't get anywhere. But for me to just change the way that I listen and my understanding made me view the situation differently. So this one issue, I was able to look at it differently. Now we were able to open up more communication because I said something different. I felt a certain way. We weren't aggressive with one another. And when when you take the aggressiveness out and you kind of, coat it with love. And so if you coat it with love and understanding, then you can sit down and have a conversation.
And so as I was listening, as my point in asking the question was, so often we have these situations in our relationship and we really think that the other person needs to change in order
Right.
to make the relationship better.
Right.
But as Jason said, if we look at it differently, we ask ourselves, what part of my plan and how can I hear it in a different way, right? How can I stop playing this tug of war? Whereas, okay, I really believe that she's wrong and she believes that I'm wrong, and we have to approach it in a different manner. So again, coming down to the basis of it is that it had to be something within him that he needed to change in order for the situation to change. He had to change something in him in order for him to see it and hear it differently. And then therefore, when that change took place, he didn't see it the same way, which means it didn't create the same issues, which means our relationship didn't have the same problems. And then when he approached it different, it allowed me to change my stance on it to hear it and see it different. We can't keep pushing the same way, talking about, well, I've changed and they need to change, but I'm gonna keep pushing my issues the same way. So we just kind of wanted to get into that and understand how most of the time we are drama focused. We are negative focused. We are always focused on the other person and their issues in the relationship instead of putting the microscope on ourselves or putting the microscope on how can I do things better? What is the positive aspect of my mate that I can approach instead of the negative aspect? What are the good qualities about my mate that I can go that route, that I still feel good about this? My mate still does this or has that. What are the positive qualities in your mate that you can go from that perspective instead of the negative perspective? Because the more we focus on negative things, the more you're going to have negative emotions attached to it, and the more they're going to create negative reactions and negative outcomes in your relationship. So
I know you say that, but I wonder if the people really understand that.
I don't think they do. People don't hear that.
Right.
That you say it and they hear. It's sort of like when I said, we know the right things to do, we just don't do it.
Right.
Or we can tell somebody else the right thing to do, but we don't do it.
Right.
Or we don't look at it when it comes to our own personal thing.
Correct.
The first thing we want to do is we want to make an excuse why we don't do it.
Right. Right.
So we if you ask somebody, like when I ask somebody, do you want to change your life and change your situation? They say, yes, of course. Do you want to change? Do you seriously want to change? Well, yeah, I want to change. That's why I'm doing it. Really? Because when the same situation comes up, you're still reacting the same way. You've read about it, you've been coached about it, you heard about it, but you say you've changed. Your idea and perspective have changed, but your actions have not changed. Your emotions have not changed.
Right.
So yeah, people don't. We just don't take the time to really put ourselves under a microscope.
Exactly.
We don't tear ourselves apart and say, it's always someone else.
Mhm.
And it's easy to say that. And people go, well, you may have a point, but I don't do this, I don't do that.
Right. Or
It's
or in the middle of the discussion, you'll point back to an instance when someone else did something. Well, I did this probably because you did something, 5 years ago.
right.
Yeah. So this is gonna justify my wrongness
Always
here.
Always justifying. We're
Right.
always justifying our actions instead of just taking a different perspective of it.
Right.
Right. You can't change if you keep holding on to why you did something or why something was always done that way. We can't change ourselves or our situations. Again, going back to elevation takes honesty. We can't change what we don't face. And oftentimes we don't want to face it. The real situation is us. It's our own drama. It's our own upbringing. It's our own issues with our mom or our dad or our previous relationship. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that we're holding somebody else accountable for something that's going on with us and we can't see it.
Right.
So that's the biggest issue. Your mate isn't changed. Your mate isn't changing to you because you haven't changed. You have not changed. If we could just stick with that today. We think we have, we believe we have, but we don't want to do the things that that require us to change because we always want to think it's somebody else's fault. But it's the way we have created our relationship, and now it's hard for us to recreate it. So we want to start with ourselves. It's we want to start with our mate. Excuse me, we want to start with our mate and not ourselves. All right, so I think that's going to be
we got a couple of
okay. We got a couple of comments. All right.
Kathy Kelly chimed in. Hey, Kelly.
Oh, hey,
Kathy,
Jason and
how
Tina.
are you?
I have a few suggestions. Love you too.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Wonderful.
What you got?
That's right. What you got? What you got for us? All right.
Vicky and
Hey,
Earl.
Vicky, nice to see you. Good
Hey,
Friday.
Earl, what's going on, guys?
Good Friday.
Yes. Oh,
Good Friday.
Yeah.
All right. All right, guys. So chime in because Jason and I, we have put the issues on the table. We have let people know that just like when you meet someone, you change. You change when you meet your mate.
Well, love does that to you. When you feel
you do that to you because you're seeing through the lens of love. Right. You're not seeing through the lens of negativity. You're not looking for the lens of, and that's why people say, well, why didn't they see the red flags? Well, when you're looking at the positive, then the negatives sometimes don't matter. Sure doesn't. And then when they come up, if you continue to look through that same lens and work on the negatives together instead of making them laser focused and so apparent and they're just always in your face, that's the issue. We're always trying to, once relationships, we created this dynamic and now we want to change it. We don't know how because we've always been conditioned to focus on the negative instead of focusing on the positive and then working from there. That's good. All right. So what does
Vicky say Good Friday?
All right, Good Friday.
Yep.
All right. So, guys, we thank you for tuning in this Friday. Yes. I think that's going to wrap up another episode for us. After Jason and I realized we do too much talking. All right. So, you guys enjoy your weekend.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy everything about life. Live life to the fullest because tomorrow's not promised. We love each and every one of you guys. We hope that these tidbit tools and reasoning or our point of views are actually making you think.
It's more of awareness. You to be able to see these things when they come up in your relationships and be able to deal with them or look at them in a different light, because that's where the actual change comes in, when you can actually look at an old issue in a new light.
And not the new light, it doesn't become a negative looking, it becomes how can we change this for the positive. We have to stop making negative more negative. We have to stop focusing that, because whatever we focus on, we're going to get more of. If we want love and change, then we have to focus on love and change. We can't focus on the problem that we think our mate needs to change or the problem that we think is in our marriage. We have to now don't look at the problem, as we've always heard, right? Don't look at the problem. Don't come to me with a problem. Come with me with a solution. This is the way. Let's have this hard conversation about the relationship isn't working, but what can we do together?
Right.
Why aren't we moving forward together? What is it that you aren't understanding and I'm not understanding? What can we do? How many books can we read? How many courses can we take? How many coaching? Do we need, relationship coaches, or do we need to go to a seminar? What can we do or say or see or feel different than what we've done before? Because you have to do something different.
That's true. Kelly chimed in. Hey, Kelly, how are you?
Kelly, it's not about being right. If my words are not clear, I need to reword my speech for my partner to understand, and stop thinking my understanding is the only way to learn and grow. And that's exactly right, Kelly. So many people think because they've said it and they think they've explained it.
And they understand it.
And they understand it. And they think that they're delivering it this is what I said. And it's plain and simple. You should understand it. Everybody's, and like I said, we've created this way of communicating with each other. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter what you say. That person's going to still hear the same thing. Because if you're saying the same thing you said last week and last year and the year before that, but you just keep saying it, they're not going to hear it. They're not. And exactly. It's not my understanding. right? I have to be able to make sure that, am I communicating effectively? Am I doing my part? Am I doing my part, or do I just want you to change because I said, look, I don't like this, so you're gonna have to change. And then if you don't, and my partner's like, what's the issue? I don't even understand what the issue. And I'm like, what you mean you don't understand the issue? I just spent 15 minutes telling you what the issue is.
And that's it right there. And that's
right.
exactly what I was about to say. So you you give your side of the story, you explain your situation,
Yep.
and the person don't understand it. And you ask them what's wrong with you. I explained it nice and clear. You can't comprehend, you don't understand. So now we get to a put down or whatever.
And I had to get that's true. I had to get to a point.
So now the person goes, okay, now I feel like every time you go to explain something, if you ask me or I say I don't understand, then you're gonna put me down. And you're just saying, I'm saying it's clear as day. You don't
get upset, or you get upset,
or you take it to another level, right? So you have to make sure that our words are clear, like Kelly said, and that the person understand what you're actually trying to get over.
Exactly.
Because you know how it is.
Because my understanding is not your understanding.
Exactly. And
absolutely.
You can say the same words to a couple people and they'll get two different understandings from that.
If I could say the exact same words to two different kids of mine, and each one will perceive it something different. Their perception of what I have said is something to movies too, right? So we all know our perception is different. So why do we think because an effective way of communicating, something different?
Back, clear understanding. There's no gray area. There's no assumptions. There's none of that.
That's why, Jason, now when we have on some of our podcasts, some of our Fridays, we've told you that Jason and I have created this safe space where, because I had to come to a realization that he wasn't understanding what I was saying, no matter how many times I said it, no matter how loud I said it, or how soft, or how slow, or how, so I was like, okay, well, maybe you're not understanding. So I would maybe keep saying the same words. So we had to get to a point where, okay, we have to change the way we're communicating, because I keep saying the same thing and you keep hearing the same thing, or you keep saying the same thing and I keep hearing the same thing. Somewhere along the lines, the interpretation is getting lost. Somewhere from what I'm saying and what you're hearing, or what you're saying and what I'm hearing, we're not communicating it very effectively. So one of our tools is to make sure that with your mate, you have to create a safe space. You have to create a space where the person doesn't feel attacked and the person doesn't feel like they're not being heard. So you have to give your mate an opportunity, right? So for me, I had to say, let's create a place where I talk and you listen, and then you repeat it back to me, right? We all know this technique, right? I say it, you repeat it back to me. But it wasn't just that. It was when we're in this space, it's a space where I feel safe. I feel like I can tell you anything. And I feel like it's okay for us to sit here until we understand what the other person is saying without interrupting, without me having to justify why I did something, without me defending myself. Well, I did that because you did that. If we eliminate some of those things, and most of the time it starts with us. It starts with me I had to understand my approach wasn't working. My approach, as much as I wanted him to change for whatever reason, whatever our situation was, as much as I kept saying it, the issues that I kept having, nothing was happening. Nothing was happening. And I thought I was changing, and I thought I was communicating to him very effectively what I needed done, and it wasn't happening. So we have to make sure when we're doing this that we're both understanding each other in the way that's going to make our relationship move forward, not move backwards. All right. So thank you, Kelly, and the other Kelly, and Vicky, and Antoinette. Thank you, guys. And anyone else viewing, thank you for all the likes. Please, guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Oh, Norma was on. All right. Hello, Norma.
Yep. And Pamela.
Oh, Pamela was on. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today. We are going to continue to talk about relationships, and we're going to continue to talk about marriage. And if you know someone that is having issues in their marriage, because most of the time we tell our friend, so direct them to this channel and send us questions and information, because guys, I want to tell you that relationships don't get better unless we do something about it. We can't just wish it and want it and think in our head that it's not happening. We have to go out and we have to seek the things in which we want.
Sure.
And if we don't know the answers, if we knew them, we wouldn't be in the situations that we're in our relationship, me included, right? I have to continue to learn. I have to continue to elevate myself. I have to continue to work on me. And if I'm not doing that, I can't expect my mate to do it, right?
That's
if
right.
I'm not being the best version of me, which means that I haven't reached my pinnacle,
That's right.
I'm going to continue to work on what I need to do to make myself better, to make myself more loving, to make myself more understanding. Because if I'm not understanding, how can I expect him to understand?
Yeah.
Why would he give me something that I'm not giving him back? That doesn't even make sense. We're looking for our mate to give us something that we don't have, when the truth is we need to have it so that we can give more of it. So share, share, subscribe. You got something else to say?
Like, share, subscribe.
All right, you guys can go to legendaryrelationship.com/info for all of our anywhere you need to see us. All right, you guys have a happy Easter. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Vicky.
Jason and I are out. We're gonna go on our date night. So thank you guys. We will see you next Friday with a new topic and new situations. And don't forget, in this channel, we're teaching you how to change it and how to change it for the positive and not focus on the negative.
Always think positive. Be positive and always have a positive relationship.
All right. So as always,
we're in it to win it. Till next week, guys.